Hello and welcome. I hope you are having a fantastic day. We're going to talk cryptocurrency news. The Bakkt exchange, this is the cryptocurrency exchange that's owned by the New York Stock Exchange, hits a new all-time high. So, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is my opinion. I am not smarter than you. You are smarter than you realize. Do not trust what I say. Do your own research. Now, Bakkt is an exchange that's owned by the company that owns the New York Stock Exchange. The Intercontinental Exchange is the name of that company. ICE is the abbreviation for it. It's also a joint venture with Microsoft and Starbucks. And this week they hit a new volume, a new all-time high of $15 million of volume in a single day of trading Bitcoin. So Bitcoin BTC futures daily volumes on digital asset platform Bakkt have hit a new all-time high with 1,741 futures traded on November 9th. Bakkt announced the new record, stating, "Today we set a new record of 1,756 Bakkt Bitcoin future contracts traded. Volume spiked coincides with Bitcoin price drop." Twitter account dedicated to Bakkt futures trading volume data, Bakkt Volume Bot, also pointed out the development on November 8th. Additionally, the daily volume of 1,741, about 15.5 million, represents a 109% increase over the 834 contracts traded the day before, with each contract being equivalent to 1 Bitcoin. So here's the chart, and you can see this is the volume on the Bakkt exchange from day one, which was September 24th, 2019, all the way down here to today's, well, not today's, this was Friday's volume on 11/8/2019. And you can see how that volume was very small until 1 month into it on October 23rd. It started to see a nice jump, and then from there it's just seen some new all-time highs on a regular basis. Now, a lot of people were very critical of the Bakkt exchange when it first launched because its volume was so low. And to be honest with you, I was very shocked at how low the volume was, but the more time goes on and the more I look at this and think about it, I'm almost wondering, was that on purpose by the Bakkt exchange? They have not said anything publicly, and so I have no facts to back up what I'm saying. It's like I've said at the beginning of the video, it is my opinion, but based on what I'm seeing here, there's such a dramatic jump as of 10/23, and then an increase of volume even to this last Friday, that it really does make me wonder if Bakkt was actually restricting people from trading on their platform, and then on this day they loosened things up. And I'm wondering if they're kind of going through still, let's shake out all the bugs. I mean, you have to think about this. This was a big project. They started this over 4 years ago, and they've spent close to $500 million setting up the Bakkt exchange. And while I've been involved in similar projects that hundreds of millions of dollars were being spent on a software project similar to what Bakkt would have been, I know that it would be very prudent of them to do a slow rollout just to make sure that everything was functioning correctly. But I would have thought that they would have said something about that publicly, saying, hey, look, guys, we're going to do a slow rollout. We're only going to do a limited number of customers at first, just because we want to shake out all the bugs. But they never said anything of the sort. So I can only guess, based on my professional experience being in the software development industry for 20 years, that may have been why we see such low volumes for a 30-day period. And then all of a sudden the volumes are picking up a little bit. Because even with today's at over 1,741 Bitcoin contracts sold, that still only represents $15.5 million traded in a single day. There's cryptocurrency exchanges out there that are nothing like the New York Stock Exchange, and yet they're doing hundreds, and in some cases even $1 billion, and that's a billion with a B, dollars of Bitcoin volume on a daily basis. And so looking at any cryptocurrency exchange that's only trading $15.5 million on their best day of Bitcoin, I would normally have considered them a small fry in the Bitcoin industry. But given that the Bakkt exchange is a joint venture between the New York Stock Exchange, Microsoft, and Starbucks, there's no way I can honestly call that. And knowing that they've worked on this for 4 years and that they invested close to $500 million in building this thing, there's no way I can consider them a small fry in the cryptocurrency industry. And so the only thing that makes sense in my mind, based on what knowledge and information I have, is that this low volume was deliberate on the part of Bakkt in order to just make sure that we ease into this slowly and make sure that everything is working well. And so I may be completely wrong in what I'm saying. It's kind of my speculation. Here's the other thing that I want to kind of point out. The price is this is actually a chart of the price of Bitcoin, and you can kind of see when the Bakkt exchange went live, it was fluctuating in the $8,000 to $8,500 range per Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden it drops down here into the $7,500 range. And as soon as it dropped down into the $7,500 range, you can see the volume spiked on the Bakkt exchange on the very day that Bitcoin pops way up to about 9,500. And then Bitcoin is kind of fluctuating around, and then there's a drop here, and that's the day that we have another jump in volume on the Bakkt exchange. So there's two things that I'm noticing. These top 3 days, well, with the exception of this one, really the top 2 days, this day here and then this day here, which were both new all-time highs on the Bakkt exchange, those two new all-time highs happened on days where Bitcoin's price was low. In this case, I'm wondering if this is part of what pushed the price up. And then here was another low as Bitcoin's price dropped below the $9,000 mark, and then all of a sudden we see a lot of action going on the exchange itself. Anyway, here's kind of the thought that I've got. I'm thinking that if you want to make money investing, follow the smart money. In other words, if you wanted to make money investing, follow some people who are billionaire investors, such as Warren Buffett or some of the other guys that have become well-known billionaire investors. And the reason for following the smart money is because they have a track record of making money. Well, when it comes to the Bakkt exchange in particular, the only people that are allowed to trade on that exchange are wealthy and institutional size investors. You know, if you're not somebody with millions of dollars to invest, you're not even going to be considered to be a customer on the exchange. And with, you know, here they're talking about a volume of 1,741 contracts traded. Each contract represents 1 Bitcoin. And so at this moment in history where this blip right here is, Bitcoin was priced at $9,500. And so each contract, and in fact, on the day that this happened, Bitcoin was riding right around $8,900, right around the $8,800 right to $8,900 price range. And so each one of those 1,741 contracts, and you could buy one contract, you could not buy a fraction of a contract. You had to buy it in whole increments. Each one of those is representing about a $9,000 investment, just below $9,000 investment. And that's typically not a small-time retail investor. Those are people who have deep pockets, and they probably weren't buying onesie-twosies. They were probably buying them in larger amounts, larger quantities. I say probably just because we don't have that information. If I did have that information, what the average sale was it one contract or was it 500 contracts? I would give that information out, but I don't happen to have that information. I don't know. So anyway, bottom line, we can see that the smart money is investing in Bitcoin each time it drops down. They seem to buy a lot of it, and that would be a good indicator for us that if Bitcoin's price is lower, jump in and buy more. Or if you're not somebody who has a stash of cash laying around that you're looking to invest in something, if you're like most people and you're living from paycheck to paycheck, then do what's called dollar cost averaging. And that simply means decide on a certain amount that you want to invest in Bitcoin either on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or every 2 weeks, whatever works best for you. And when that time period hits, whether it's once a month or once a week, take a certain amount of money and invest it in Bitcoin. And that's called dollar cost averaging. And the reason why they call it dollar cost averaging is because you're on a regular basis, you're investing the same amount of money into a particular asset. So it's not unique to Bitcoin. It's also used for 401ks or for stocks or for other things. Dollar cost averaging is a term that's been around for a long time. And just on a regular basis, put the same amount of money into whatever investment you're interested in, whether it's Bitcoin or something else. And over time, you'll accumulate a large bag of that. You'll accumulate a large amount of it over time. And over time, as long as you're investing in something that's growing on a regular basis over a long period of time, it's more of a long-term investment, you'll end up coming out ahead. And so it's definitely a financial strategy that's used for most people's 401ks. That's how a 401k typically works, is you're taking a certain amount of money out of every paycheck and it goes into a 401k. Well, that's dollar cost averaging. Here's another little article on the same topic by Yahoo Finance about Bakkt's monthly Bitcoin futures hit all-time high of 15 million. And the thing that I thought was interesting on this one is Bitcoin recently announced that its plans to launch a cryptocurrency consumer app and merchant portal in the first half of 2020 with Starbucks, the provider's first launch partner. Intercontinental Exchange ICE CEO Jeffrey Sprecher also announced in an earnings call that all types of financial institutions were talking to Bakkt to explore the possibility of adopting its offering. ICE is the main backer of Bakkt, the Bakkt exchange. And ICE is that company I mentioned earlier. They own the New York Stock Exchange. They own a total of 8 different exchanges all over the world. Some of them are in the United Kingdom. Some of them are in Europe. Of course, the New York Stock Exchange is in the United States, as well as they own 12 different clearing houses. In fact, if you ever hear on the news where they're talking about the price of oil, the price of a barrel of oil is such and such, well, they probably got that off of the ICE clearinghouse in the United Kingdom, is the leading leader of the price of barrels of oil in the world. And that's an ICE-owned property or an ICE-owned clearinghouse. So ICE is a big deal. They're a $9.9 billion a year business. And so for them to have built the Bakkt exchange with the likes of Starbucks and Microsoft and several others, you know that they've got big plans for it. And this is, first of all, just confirming their plans with Starbucks in 2020. The cryptocurrency consumer app is another indication of them being very, very serious about the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. And the fact that they're saying that all types of financial institutions were talking to Bakkt to explore the possibility of adopting its offerings. Now, financial institutions could mean organizations like TD Ameritrade or E-Trades or some of the other online stock exchanges. And if that happens, then people will be able to buy Bitcoin futures contracts directly from their online stock accounts. What other financial institutions could they be talking to? I don't know if Jeffrey Sprecher went into detail on it, but you also need to think in terms of when they're making those kinds of announcements on an earnings call, there is certain legal liability or certain legal requirements for them to be providing truthful information that I'm sure that they wouldn't have violated. And so I would take, there's lots of different fake news going on out there. I would tend to lean towards this is less likely to be fake news when it's being said during an earnings call of a major corporation that's doing $9.9 billion a year, especially when the company that owns the New York Stock Exchange is extremely familiar with all of the different types of SEC and securities regulations. And so they're going to be very careful not to break any of those regulations because they don't want to put their business, the New York Stock Exchange, at risk or any of their other investments and businesses around the world. So to me, that this announcement is a significant deal and a significant indicator that maybe Bakkt had a slow start, but it definitely is something that these guys, meaning ICE, Microsoft, Starbucks, and the other organizations that have been building this, are very, very serious about where they're going in the future. And they have very serious plans that are going to be implemented in the short term and in the long term. And so to me, all of this is a very bullish sign about a bright future for Bitcoin. And so this may be a spectacular opportunity to get involved in something that has a low price, because even though 8,000, right now Bitcoin's price is at $9,666.85. And so even though that sounds like a lot, that may be a new all-time low, and we may be in a position where we're going to see Bitcoin increasing to much larger dollar amounts in the future. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was December of 2017 that Bitcoin was trading at almost $20,000. It was trading at $19,900 and change. And so it came very close to trading for $20,000 per Bitcoin. Now, in my personal opinion, I think we will see another $20,000 Bitcoin in the near future, and I think we'll see a much higher Bitcoin in the months and years to come. So that's enough out of me. How can I be of service to you? If you have any questions, if you like what I said, if you don't understand anything, if you have questions about what I said, please let me know in the comments below. If you disagree with me, I would love to hear your polite disagreements in the comments below, because the best way to learn is from somebody that doesn't agree with you. And you know things that I don't know. I don't know everything, and you know certain things that I don't know. So if you share them through your polite disagreements, we can both learn together and grow smarter together. In the meantime, I hope that you'll like, subscribe, and hodl. Have a fantastic